You and the great Lance Zierlein both comped Trey Harris to Alec Pierce.
56% of his routes were go, curl, or screen. I mean, it is a very stripped down tree there. All
so
Trey
funny,
Harris
man.
can do is pretty much run, goes, and slants.
Look at the release.
There's your separation.
Great route.
Stutter and go. Gets by clean.
That is unbelievable.
May be the greatest catch I've ever seen.
Let's start with Ole Miss wide receiver Trey Harris, 6'2", 205 pounds. He ran a 4.5, 440 with a 38.5-inch vertical. You and the great Lance Zierlein both comped Trey Harris to Alec Pierce. So a much more straight line X receiver that you can find in the middle rounds here of the upcoming draft.
Yeah, man. Straight line X receiver. You pretty much nailed it on the head. That is the archetype for our guy, Trey Harris here. I thought this guy, I'm curious to hear what you think about him because I think he's very James Koh coded. Is Trey Harris here. X receiver.
Right.
He can get down the fild. Now, he definitely, I thought he would time a little bit better than he did. I was a little disappointed. That was a little disappointing because one of the dumbest takes that I have about prospects this year is that Trey Harris just looks like an NFL receiver. You know, like when you just see him out on the field, like I'm saying before you even hit play on the film, you see the opening shot. He just like kind of the stance he has is very classic, kind of throwback X receiver. He's got the size for it. He's got the frame for it. He just looks like what an NFL receiver looks like. Now, of course, we know, and if anyone listens to this podcast knows, NFL receivers come in all shapes and sizes, especially these days. Like these guys are not, honestly, teams are kind of moving away from like this archetype of receiver, or at least like they're moving away from them being true number one reads in the concepts, right? And this is where
for sure
this is where the idea of the sacrificial X receiver comes in, because I think a lot of the sacrificial X's they come from the straight line X receiver archetype, right? Like now, of course, there's like I want to go over kind of the high to low ends of that here in a second, but just focusing on Trey Harris. You know, as you mentioned, the size is there. He is a true X. There's no question about that. I don't think there's any sort of you know, we talk about like Jaden Higgins, maybe he moves to the slot. Maybe Tet McMillan, he can move around the formation a little bit. No, I think Trey Harris will be an X. 54.9% snaps on the line of scrimmage, 78.8% outside. I expect him to play that in the NFL. Now, the question with him is just the route tree, because I think he shows you an ability to beat man and press coverage. The success rates are actually pretty good. 73.2% against man, 72.2 against press. Those are solid numbers. The thing is 56% of his routes were go, curl, or screen. I mean, it is a very stripped down tree there for our guys, Trey Harris. I mean, even if we want to cut it further than that, just straight up 50% of them were go and curl. Now, he's good on those routes. But that is a very stripped down tree.
61.5% success rate on the 9 route per Matt Harmon's charting here. 87.8% success rate on the curl route, which, by the way, he ran 29% of his routes were on the curl. And for him to post nearly an 88% success rate on that, that's right. I mean, come on now. That's really good. 13.5% of his routes were on the slant. And again, another route that he was really, really good on, 85.3% success rate on the slant. Very interesting route tree, though, Matt, because when you add it all up, when you add up all of his outbreaking routes, all of them, it is less than 8% of his routes were the corner out, comeback, flat route. I mean, just we're talking a very, very small amount of his routes broke to the outside. And I wrote this in my notes here as well. Talk to me about his sideline work. I didn't see a lot of it. And then what I did see of his sideline work, I didn't really like it very much at all. So my question to you is, in this Ole Miss Lane Kiffin offense, is it just that these wide receivers don't run out-breaking routes, or is it just the fact that they kind of sort of saw that Trey Harris maybe wasn't that good on out-breaking routes and thus just did not have him run those routes? I'm a little bit torn on it.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm going back to like Jonathan Mingo is the last Ole Miss receiver that I chose. By the way, I was talking to Easton Freeze, who's a really good Titans reporter. I was talking to him at the Combine, and he was just asking me about, because I think maybe the conversation point of, I don't think it was about Trey Harris. I don't think I'd even actually, no, I had done some work on him at that point, but
okay,
I can't remember how it came up. Everything's a little hazy at the Combine, but he basically asked me,
fair,
who's the last good prospect that came out of who's the best prospect that's come out of the Ole Miss offense since Lane Kiffin got there? And I was like, I mean, dude, it's probably like Elijah Moore, and he's been a career disappointment at this point, but he's probably the best player, because who's the other guy? Like it's probably Jonathan Mingo, who, by the way, 8.5% of his routes were flat comeback out corner in his reception perception profile. And he was mostly a perimeter receiver who I thought could kick outside into the slot. He's another one of these guys that only he lined up a decent bit in the slot, 25.1%, but only when he was outside was he on the left side of the field. Now, the good news for Trey Harris is that he's not one of those guys. He actually moved between sides, so that's good, because we know that's a bit of a red flag, and we'll actually talk about that with the next prospect that we're going to break down a little bit more in depth. But yeah, I would say that that's just the offense, man. Like it's very basic, and this is some of the issues that people have with Jackson Dart as a round one prospect, is that this offense creates so much space, and it is very stripped down. It's not conducive to NFL development. It's conducive to scoring points at the collegiate level.
Right. Okay, so Trey Harris, again, you talk about it. You see this guy. He looks really good from just a physical standpoint. 6'2", 205 pounds. I kind of sort of thought, he tested average in terms of his combine numbers. Again, 4.5, 440, 38.5-inch vertical. That's good. 10.5 broad jump. Again, that's decent. These are all decent numbers. They're not certainly. There's nothing bad about these numbers. But then at the same time, I kind of, from a play speed perspective, I don't know. Could you chime in on that? I thought he had very average play speed too.
Yeah, worth noting, he was injured in the back half of this last season. Injuries have actually been a bit of an issue for him, so maybe he just wasn't 100% healthy when he tested at the Combine. Okay. I actually kind of thought that he stacked corners on go routes pretty well in terms of his speed. And I kind of he's not a tackle breaker at all, but I think he can eat up ground when he gets the ball in the open field. So I kind of liked his play speed a bit better than his time speed. I was a bit taken aback by, I thought he might be more of a 4.4 guy, but some of these guys, they're just faster on tape than they are at the Combine. I'd probably put Trey Harris in that group. But the thing that caught my attention was the slant route success rate, 85.3% success rate. I think he actually gets into those routes pretty well when he threatens defense. Like, teams are definitely scared of his vertical speed. There's no question. That's why that curl route success rate is really high. And I think the play speed was pretty good. And yeah, man, that's what's the thing with Trey Harris. I want to talk more about like the archetype of this player, of this kind of player in general, but just for Harris specifically, because I do think he can stack corners on the outside, and I think the play speed is pretty good. And he shows you some, what I'd call flashes of crafty route running against man and press coverage. I do like that. I do think he's like a second round pick. I don't think he's a first rounder. I don't think he's necessarily somebody it's a volatile profile. There's no question about that. It's a volatile profile that there's not a floor, but there is a high ceiling, because when this type hits, it does hit pretty big.
Talk about the hands here. I thought from a contested catch perspective, I thought he was above average. It's not somebody that I would say, oh my God, he's got great contested catch ability, but I would say it's definitely above average. I liked his fight for the ball. Overall was pretty good. But again, such limited amount of, look, if you're going to be an X receiver in the NFL, Matt, you've got to have sideline work, period. And I know that this wasn't really a lot of what we saw in this Ole Miss offense, but still, what limited amount of sideline work that we saw from Trey Harris, I like I said, I thought it was okay. I wasn't, taken away. I just wasn't impressed with Trey Harris along the sideline. So you're right. In a lot of ways, you're thinking, all right, this could be a James Koh guy, but I'm not that high on Trey Harris only because, again, I was a little bit torn on what we saw along the sideline, and we didn't see a lot of it. So I don't know. What are your takes on Trey Harris's hands?
Well, that's why I think he's kind of like a developmental player. I think it wouldn't be surprising if he wasn't all that useful in year one, just because he's coming off of like a goofy offense. He's coming off a role where it's not really NFL translatable, and that idea of, hey, like we didn't see him work on the sideline, we didn't see him work out breaking routes at all. Yeah, there's no X receiver tree in the NFL where that's the assignment, I think his contested catchability got better, I think, throughout the course of the sample. So that was good to see. I think that was something that he developed at the NFL level. I do like his timing and feel at the catch point. That's something that I think got better for him. I think he attacks the ball pretty well and plays physical.
Yeah.
So that's something that I think he just can continue to develop. Can I give you my scary player comparison for Trey Harris, though?
Sure.
Because like if we're talking about the straight line X receiver archetype, you mentioned Alec Pierce. I think that's like somewhere in the low middle of that archetype. I think the peak of that archetype is probably DK Metcalf, right? Like he's the 100%. Straight line X receiver. He's the top of that totem pole. Mike Williams is somewhere in the upper end of it. If we go all the way to the lower end of it, and I know this was a guy you did like coming out of college, and I appreciate it a little bit as well. Trey Harris's reception perception metrics are so similar, frighteningly similar to Terrace Marshall coming out of LSU.
Oh no.
I know.
Oh no.
And this alone gave me some like real hesitation about the player because like just look at this. Trey Harris 73.2
Marshall.
I know. Trey Harris 73.2% success rate versus man. Terrace Marshall 74% success rate versus man at LSU. That's good. Success
really
rate versus
good.
press, pretty damn good for Terrace Marshall, pretty damn good for Trey Harris. 75.2% success rate versus zone for Trey Harris, which is not good. Terrace Marshall, 75.7% success rate versus zone. Not good. And when you just line up their two route trees, James, we got both. Like, again, the overall success rates versus man and press are pretty decent, but all Terrace Marshall could do was run goes and slants. All Trey Harris can do is pretty much run goes and slants. And Terrace Marshall, I mean, I hate to be mean, but he was like a useless NFL player, essentially. He's still the second lowest success rate versus man coverage in the reception perception NFL database. So tough, man. That comparison alone, like that's what we're talking about when we talk about volatile profile. It's like we're gonna be ping-ponging somewhere between like Mike Williams, Terrace Marshall. Hopefully we settle on Alec Pierce.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Okay. So there you go. That's Trey Harris. If you want to go take a look at the profile, it's again on receptionperception.com.